Will the wise man Paul Heyman return at Survivor Series 2024 for the OG Bloodline versus New Bloodline War Games match is the top topic on today's video. Of course, Roman Reigns has made the phone call. James said, you got to make that call. You got to make that call. And after a beatdown 5-on-4 on SmackDown from the New Bloodline, which includes Bronson Reed, Roman Reigns made that call. However, the number's no longer active. The wise man's not answering the call right now, but surely, NXT, he's probably watching the show. He has not been seen since Madison Square Garden when the New Bloodline put him through a table after they'd had him pretty much hostage, a part of their group, since WrestleMania had concluded. He's not been seen since, of course, somebody say. It's been a number of months now, but it feels like that return could be imminent. Will he be back for Survivor Series NXT?
It'd be silly to say no, but like, I don't know. I'm confused with this whole fifth member thing and who's meant to be gaining more from the outcome of this. But yeah, I presume he'll be back, man. It's Paul Heyman. It's the Bloodline. It's like the final piece of the pie, really, that will complete their story arc. And do you know what? Actually, as much as I say yes, there is also a very good chance he might not, and it could be the reason possibly why they lose the War Games match as well, because they don't have the wise man. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Survivor Series is 2 weeks away? Something like that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a possibility. I mean, there needs to be a Paul Heyman promo before War Games, I feel. So if he's going to make his comeback, it's probably going to most likely be, well, to be fair, it could be this Friday or next Friday. It doesn't really matter. But we have to get a Paul Heyman promo at some point, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense, because he doesn't add anything in terms of in-ring ability. His add-on is that he speaks, he can talk, he can cut promos. So we do need to, if they are going to bring him back, he needs to come back this week or next week. If not, if they don't want to bring him back, then I think that's possibly going to be the reason why they lose that War Games match.
You've hit most of the nail on the head there with the 2 points you've made there. The reason he should come back, because he brings to the table. Also, he's the wise man, the master strategist. Literally right now, the OG Bloodline don't seem to get any advantage. There was seem to be found, one step behind the New Bloodline in some format, in some way. However, Bronson Reed, of course, now being the fifth member of the New Bloodline, does that mean Seth freaking Rollins possibly will now align himself and be, it's the old Shield and Bloodline OG combined? It seems like that's the way it's going to be. We're going to talk about more about that, by the way. This is a live Q&A, everyone joining us. Thank you for joining us. Get your questions in nice and early. We'll be talking about the War Games match in itself in detail, or 5-on-5 a bit later in the video. However, Paul Heyman has two positions he could come back in this one. War Games is one of them, because it is, of course, then to get revenge on the entire New Bloodline who took him out in Madison Square Garden. Or it's a case that perhaps maybe it's when Roman Reigns is actually going to be the tribal chief once again, trying to have that one-on-one match with Solo Sikoa. That's the second destination I could see Paul Heyman returning. But judging the fact that they've made the phone call, they've tried to make contact, Heyman, of course, is watching the show. He loves wrestling. He sees everything that's going on. Even if it's hard to connect to him, he knows how to connect to them. And when the time is right, and that's the thing with the wise man, it all comes down to timing. So for him, it's when he chooses to come in, he can put the play in as well. He is someone who's been a part of arguably the greatest War Games match ever, by the way. And not just WCW era, I'm going to say ever. Wrestle War 92, the Dangerous Alliance, which he was in charge of. Of course, it was a losing effort on that day, but I think he probably got a lot of valuable experience from it as well. I imagine that he would be someone that would be able to help make the plays there to make sure that the OGs come out on top. And if they do get the wise man involved, I think that probably is the telling point of whether they're going to win or lose this match.
Yeah, I'd like to think that. I mean, don't want to break kayfabe, but he's probably not watching it at home. He's probably watching it from backstage. But yeah, I mean, dude, I totally agree with you. He is the deciding factor ultimately in if they win this match. And I mean, dude, there's always a small chance that they bring him back and they still lose, but I very much doubt it. But again, the point is like, where is this story going? Like, we had this discussion before, I think it was on the last Q&A, when we said that you were saying that Solo versus Roman is obviously a match that they're probably going to do. And again, I'm still going to reemphasize the point. Has Solo done enough to justify being in a one-on-one position with Roman Reigns. And obviously, I put the question to you before: does he deserve to be like a world champion, or does he needs to have something? And I don't know. Like I said, if you have the OG Bloodline lose this, you can drag this story out a little bit more, and you can go and do whatever. But if the OG Bloodline do win, it's kind of like, what's the goal for WrestleMania? I mean, I presume obviously The Rock still is a factor in this, so maybe Roman Rock is still what they want to do for WrestleMania. Maybe it's not, but it's kind of like it's how this all ties in, because we've got like 6 months till WrestleMania, and it's kind of like trying to. This not, I wouldn't say necessarily fit it in, but just make it work.
Yeah, making it work is what they need to do, obviously, at this stage. I think solo match happens. Whether it happens at WrestleMania or before remains to be seen. They are teasing Roman versus Jacob Fatu a lot as a big-time match. That could also be a WrestleMania goal that they could go for instead. Like we say, Jacob Fatu seems very unstoppable, the monster at this point. Solo is beatable. So there is obviously a swerve where you can go with it. But speaking of swerves and a segue back into Paul Heyman, I like this comment from Sid here, by the way. Sid, hope you're doing well. Shout out to Wendy as well in the comments also. Sid says, I think Paul Heyman's number doesn't work because he has a new number and he will be joining the new Bloodline. Could you imagine if the idea of the whole thing of a swerve? Yes, the new Bloodline took him out, but perhaps maybe that's what Paul Heyman went, you know what? This whole thing's been a ruse. We know Roman will come back eventually, and that's how we're going to get him, because Paul Heyman is known to being politely a bit of a scumbag to some of his talents in the past. He's screwed a number of them over. Roman Reigns could be the latest one. Is there a possibility that Heyman actually could come back, perhaps maybe align himself with the OG Bloodline, but yet screw them in the War Games match and align himself with the new Bloodline full-time going forward?
I mean, there is the possibility that there is the fear factor to it, because if we think about it, obviously the last time he was involved in anything, they powerbomb him for a table or something, and it was kind of like, essentially, he could be in a position where he's afraid to not be a part of the new Bloodline, and they do it that way. But the way Paul Heyman used to protest before that, you are not my tribal chief, Solo Sikoa, I find it hard to believe that he will join the new Bloodline. As interesting as it may be, but then you have to find the counterbalance for Paul Heyman. And let's be honest, there ain't many managers out there that are a counterbalance for Paul Heyman. So, I mean, dude, unless you do something stupid like CM Punk as a counterbalance, I don't know, but that doesn't work at the minute. Like in my head, like I can't get the math to math on that one. So yeah, I mean, dude, there's always a possibility, but I'm quietly reserved that he will go back to the OG Bloodline.
Same as well. Kai's actually got involved with this as well. Kai, thank you for your comment here. It says, I think Paul Heyman is not happy Sami Zayn has joined the Bloodline and has changed his number and doesn't want to speak to Roman. So it's actually looking at the some of the old members coming back, and Heyman wouldn't be on board with that. So interesting take there, Kai. For me, the way I look at this, and this is why I kind of agree with you, I would like to see it before Survivor Series, because Seth freaking Rollins it seems to be now, I think, the obvious choice for everybody of who the fifth member is going to be for the OG Bloodline team. We've mentioned it already, but Seth has come out and said, no way is he teaming with Roman Reigns ever again. Next time he's in the ring with him, he's going to stomp his head to the mat. That is the plan for Seth freaking Rollins. Sami Zayn couldn't talk to him. I'm sure Jey Uso couldn't talk to him. I don't think Jimmy's even going to try with Seth Rollins, to be brutally honest. But I think Paul Heyman could get through to him. I think Heyman, he's the wise man for the reason. He knows how to get into people's heads. He knows how to, dare I say, manipulate someone into the common goal. I think that should be the key of why Seth Rollins changes his mind and goes into battle alongside Roman. Because it's simply, yes, it can be Bronson Reed. Yes, it can be the fact that Solo cost him a match here and there. But I'd like to just see a little bit more than that, because Paul Heyman, for me, needs to be the difference maker.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, as much as I like Bronson Reed, it was just the fact that I thought Seth Rollins was too easy. Like, honestly, at one point, I thought Kevin Owens was going to be the fifth guy for the new Bloodline, because it was kind of like it would make total sense. But then I'm like, Solo Sikoa is the reason why he's not world champion. So I said, I thought logically that doesn't really make sense. But I mean, yeah, ultimately, dude, it's going to be Seth Rollins. I mean, don't get me wrong, Bronson Reed is going to gain massively from this. This is going to elevate him to one of the top heels in the company at the minute. I mean, that they are crying out for some. I mean, Kevin Owens is probably top heel on SmackDown at the minute because there's not really many other people. You could possibly say the Bloodline, but I think as an individual, you're probably looking at Kevin Owens. And Bronson Reed's doing the same over on Raw, man. They're desperate for some big heels, so this is just great for him.
Certainly is massive for him at this point. Keep the questions lined up. We will come to the Q&A portion of this very shortly, but you've just set it up perfectly because obviously you've mentioned about Bronson Reed. Let's talk about him. Bronson Reed joining the new Bloodline. I tell you what, I did a video earlier in the week of who I think the fifth member of each person would be, and I did say Seth, and I did say Bronson Reed at the end of the video. My reasoning for it was the fact that I felt that's what was being presented on TV. I, like you, I wanted Kevin Owens. I wanted Owens and Cody. That's what I wanted. But when I saw this, I did sit and think to myself, do you know what? He does look good with him, and he does take him to another level. The Tsunami on Roman as well. I was just sitting there thinking, alongside Jacob Fatu as well. I was like, Bronson's been one of the best booked people in a way on Raw with presentation. I think the only nitpick I have with Bronson Reed now he's a part in this position is even more justification. He should have won against Braun Strowman in the last Monster Standing match. You'd even argue against Seth at Crown Jewel, but I can kind of forgive that one a little bit more because of the fact, obviously, that the new Bloodline got involved on Monday on Raw. But at the same time, I do feel to myself that, Bronson Reed is starting to get to a different level in WWE, and I'm all here for it. I'm really enjoying his work. I'm enjoying the presentation, and I don't see him being, if they should lose this War Games match, I don't see him being the fall guy either. I think he can come out of this shining even brighter.
Dude, we all know who's the full guy in the new Bloodline's going to be anyway. But, I mean, dude, I wasn't happy with either of the results in terms of Bronson Reed. Like, the fact that... well, not really, because obviously there was no DQ to it, to be fair. The last Monster Standing, I was okay with that one because it was Seth's return and it was a point of making this and starting this feud. But with the Crown Jewel one is the one I can't do with because I said before, I said on Crown Jewel, Seth can take losses. It's a case of you can put him in 12 matches. He only needs to win the last one. He can take 11 losses. And I mean, that's the only thing I worry about is that they're not booking him strong in terms of wins. Otherwise, everything else looks great.
Yeah, everything else does look great. And to be fair, like I said, the guy's throwing people from audiences. He's doing tsunamis onto vehicles. He's become the Bron Breakker of the summer, really, into the autumn, hasn't he? Because Bron Breakker was doing this stuff earlier in the year, and now he's just gone on to become the IC champion. Bronson Reed's doing it, and let's be fair, he's taking it up a notch, to be fair. I'm excited to see him part of this new Bloodline. I thought as the dynamic there, acknowledging Solo, all standing next to the crew, just felt like the dude fit in. And I was like, do you know what? I actually think this can work pretty darn well, and I don't know. I'm quite looking forward to War Games this year. I think it's going to be a solid encounter.
The question is does he hang around with the Bloodline afterwards? Like, I know they're on different shows, but does that really matter now? Like, with Netflix coming up soon in January, and they're kind of really going to be really loose with the fixed rosters, there's no real reason why they couldn't actually carry this angle on and have Bronson Reed carry on as part of the new Bloodline.
There is that argument in there, like you said, because obviously, Sammy and Jay are on Raw, by the way, as well. So they have to be very loose with what they're doing in the storyline. So there is that idea there of what they're going to do when it comes to Netflix and the USA Network with the rosters going forward. So I agree with you. I think loosely is the term that's going to be, especially when you get to Royal Rumble winners challenging opposite world champions. That stuff usually happens around WrestleMania season. So yeah, I expect all that stuff to happen till at least April. So yeah, like you say, this could be something that could be an intermediate, medium to long-term project you could have going on here with Bronson. For me, I'd prefer to keep it in the family. That's just something I would just like to say. I prefer the kept family members. That's what the Bloodline's meant to be. But at the same time, Sammy was a part of this story for a long time, which is why he's been brought back in. And to be fair, I mean, Bronson, even though he doesn't have no immediate ties, like I say, he does. It feels like he's a good fit. He does seem like someone that adds credibility to the group.
Do you know what I was just thinking as well? They actually need to do. They haven't done the whole advantage match yet. They need to do that as well.
Yeah,
that's the other key factor in this as well. Sorry, my brain went on a little spiral off there, and I was like, yeah, that's got to be a thing as well. So, yeah, I mean, Bronson Reed's. Like I said, Bronson Reed's only going to gain from this. So, all props to him, and like everything's going to go up. It's just going to be, like I said, where the continuation goes afterwards. Like if Bronson Reed carries on as part of this angle, I wouldn't mind. But if they are going to essentially go back to doing Bronson versus Seth, again, it's dragging. It's just got to work for me. And like obviously, 9 times out of 10, they normally pull it off well, and it's always. But just for me, it's always the one thing I do worry about is how it's going to get to that point.
Absolutely. And I think obviously when it comes to the advantage match, New Bloodline should win it, whether it's Bronson Reed, whether it's Jacob Fatu, one of those two probably would be the likely one that would go in, get the job done, you would imagine, for the team there. And perhaps maybe it's like I say, it could be a Seth, it could be a Jey Uso, it could be someone like that. Sami Zayn, for example, happily there to take that pinfall.
Roman Solo is the advantage match.
Coming to a random Raw here in Corpus Christi. Yeah, we look forward to it. I'll tell you what we'll do in the meantime, ladies and gents. We're going to go to the comments now because I've got some subtopics that I want to talk about throughout the stream. But I mean, this is a live Q&A. This is your show. This is about you. So we want to take questions from you and talk about what you want to talk about as well. So let's get into and dive into some of your comments, your questions, and see what you've got to say. Byron Cutler in the house, how we doing? Byron says, I've seen the internal build to WrestleMania 41, and you'll be blown away when we get to 2025. Looks like Byron's got his crystal ball out. That's one thing I can see there. Byron, whatever you've seen, my friend, I'm looking forward to seeing your vision as we get closer to 2025. Ray says, reports saying Mike Bailey is going to AEW. Do you think it's a good move for Mike Bailey? Of course, the speedball, very talented performer. Would you like to see him in AEW? Apparently, he's now off the Impact roster page on their website.
I think he'll have great matches. I'm just worried about where he fits on that card. Like, dude, I mean, Ricochet's literally gone there, and what's Ricochet done? He's done nothing. He's just wrestled. It's like he's not like, I don't know, man. That's my whole worry, is that he's going to go there and just do nothing and just be mid-card guy. And it's kind of like, this is the pros and cons you've got to weigh up when leaving from the position you're in TNA as a former champion. Do you know what I mean? And you're going into a new company where you're essentially starting from the bottom and you've got to work your way back up again. You're not going to walk into a TNT championship match. If you do, you're probably going to lose it, because AEW seem to book newcomers to lose championship matches. I can't really remember the last time someone new came in and won a title in their first attempt. But yeah, I don't know, like I said, it's more the standard of the guy, really, and what he wants to do. If I was Mike Bailey, personally, I'd stay in TNA. But then again, it depends how big the check is. And if Tony Khan's writing a big check with a few zeros on it, I might be personally swayed to go to AEW.
I quite like some zeros. I can't lie about that one. I'd be tempted with the zeros. But look, I am a big fan of Speedball Mike Bailey. I really think he's a top performer, very talented guy. I actually would say he's probably in the top 20 in-ring wrestlers in the world. Mike's skills might be the thing that would hold him back. So AEW is where the best wrestle, isn't it? Rather than WWE, where stories are supposed to be the driven thing. So maybe it's the right move. The problem I see, and this is just me being harsh here, but this is me being harsh and honest with an opinion, because I want to see him on Dynamite every week. I want to see him, doing big things, but he's got Collision written all over him for me. I can see him being a Saturday player and just not, someone who doesn't watch Collision because just don't have the time to. That would suck big time, because I think more highly of Mike Bailey, but that's where I think they're looking to bolster their roster runners to make that Saturday show more strong, because Wednesdays seem to be quite filled with a lot of the top talent they've already got.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I was just about to ask you, if you fantasy book it, like you said, if he's not that great in the mic, what factions you join him? Because ultimately, you need to join a faction if you're not the greatest talker. So dude, there's so I forget. Like, dude, we was literally having a discussion a few weeks ago about Will Hobbs being part of the Don Callis family. All of a sudden, the following show, he's no longer part of it, and it kind of like, what is going on with this place? I mean, the Don Callis family, maybe he needs someone obviously who can talk, but like I said, I just wonder that he'll get lost in the shuffle. And like you said, if you think he's destined for Collision, man, it's like, why would you want to go from a company where you're one of the top guys to a Saturday show that no one really cares about at the minute?
Well, I say that just because I'm a big fan of Deonna Purrazzo, and I do not see her enough on Dynamite. It's usually Rampage or Collision, and it's like, I think she's above that. But then at the same time, it's network television. It is, it's still a big platform. It's just the fact as a personal viewer, I don't have time to put that time out there, and it's a shame you get to miss a number of talented performers. But if I was going to put him in a faction, just because you've thrown the question out there, it'd be rude not to answer it. put him alongside Mark Briscoe. One of those conglomeration big promos, and just have everyone do their bits in the background as well. Carlo Ryan, I'm loving that group personally. So have Bailey
it's
just
such
there.
an oddball group. It's like the oddities all over again. Like it's just a random mix of guys thrown in. They've all got their pros and they've all definitely got their cons.
But just Mike Bailey's the martial arts dude in the group as well. Do you know what I mean? Just throw a kick around, just leaving the area. Just still leave Orange Cassidy sat there at the end. Perfect for me. Speaking of AEW, are you liking John Moxley's character in AEW, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. I mean, dude, we're at that time of year again where we're waiting for the payoff of the storyline, because we was here this time last year waiting for who the devil was, and obviously that was a big disappointment. And it's kind of just how I genuinely feel about stories of AEW, is that they get you all hyped to start off with. It fades out because they drag it out too long, and the payoff just isn't worth it. John Moxley's just being the same John Moxley he's always been. This is just another variation of the same character. So, do you know what I mean? He's always been good on the mic. He's always been good in the ring, and it's just like the fact that he's world champion, I suppose, is a plus. Like, I think if he didn't have that world title around his waist, I think it would be a waste of him even doing this.
Yeah, the world title for me is the whole story. So to a certain degree, without that world title, it's kind of like NWO-esque of like, well, if Hogan didn't have the belt, it didn't work. So like, if it's a takeover, you need to take over with the big gold. So I'm enjoying the character. I'm enjoying what I see most weeks. I can't say I'm not up to date on this week's AEW. Life has just got in the way, but I will catch up in time to give you some predictions for Full Gear next week. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to seeing the direction, like you say. We're in sort of like a growing phase of what they're going to do with this story. This is not the end goal at Full Gear. It's probably going to be World's End before we get to at least where what the point of this is, and then we can see where it goes after that. But no, all in all, I don't mind Mox's character in AEW. It's certainly better than having Mitch the Plant or the mask he had as Dean Ambrose in 2019 on Raw.
Yeah, agreed. But see, the thing is obviously I don't expect Cassidy to win against Moxley, as much as it'd be pretty cool for Cassidy to do that. Do you know what I mean? Just to see his growth as a wrestler over the last few years and his character change. But like, who's next? Who goes after Moxley? Who's the next? What, Kenny Omega returns? Like, what is the goal? Do you know what I mean? Who's out there that's meant to be the opposing force to John Moxley? And what's the name of their faction now? They've not the Blackpool Combat Club. It's
Death Riders.
Death Riders, right? That's, don't get me wrong, that's a cool as hell name. But like, who's meant to be the opposing force? Like, who is the OG Bloodline in this storyline? Do you know what I mean? Like, these guys are obviously meant to be new Bloodline. It's like, I know it's a poor like comparison, but like, you know what I'm trying to get at. Like, there's no one out there at the minute that's supposed to be this opposing force. And like, I mean, obviously the whole stuff that's going on with Wheeler Yuta is very interesting in itself, because the fact that they nearly left the guy behind during the week and they really didn't care, and he kind of caught up, and it's like, well, is Daniel Bryan meant to be coming back? Who knows? But yeah, man, like I said, there's just no, I don't know where this story's going, and it's how I commonly feel with AEW storylines. Is just I don't know what I'm supposed to expect or look forward to.
It's interesting. I think I know where it goes to World's End. I agree with you, by the way, with Cassidy. I think Orange will be red next Saturday, not by choice. But then when it comes to the follow-up match, I think Darby Allin's the next one in line. I think the idea is to build the next star in AEW, the new world champion. So, yeah. However, I'm not sure if Darby wins it on that occasion, and I'm not sure they may need, like you say, like the OG AEW. God, it does sound quite similar now we talk about it like this, but it might need a Kenny Omega. It certainly will get the Young Bucks by the turn of the year, because they're supposed to be back by World's End, allegedly. So let's see what comes along. But certainly fascinating stuff indeed in AEW. Thank you, David, for your question. I hope you're doing well. From one David to another, Mr. Valentine says Paul Heyman can't come back. Solo's bloodline will destroy him forever. And that could be true. But at least this time, if Paul Heyman was to return, he would have an OG bloodline looking out for him as well. But so far, it's not going well for them. They are going to need that fifth member.
What they should do is get a mobility scooter and make it like the Pope Mobile, and have Paul Heyman ride around on a mobility scooter with perspex glass all around it, so they can't get to him, and he'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Like Michael Cole at that one WrestleMania, I think, the day when they're done.
Exactly.
Sid wants to see Natalya as the first US champion. Doesn't think it will happen. Unfortunately for you, I don't think it will happen either, mainly because I'm going to need to take this ticker away just for this, because we got the graphic, ladies and gentlemen. We have it here. I just got to find it first. Here it is. Count 3, 2, 1. Hey, there it is. Look at that. This was before we had the first match, by the way, in the tournament. So we know Bayley has already qualified against Candice LeRae and B-Fab. B-Fab had a good showing, by the way. I really enjoyed her in-ring work for someone that's
it was good.
arguably not been there for that long doing in-ring. So credit to her for that performance. Next week on SmackDown, we got Bianca Belair, Chelsea Green, and Blair Davenport. Then we have Jade Cargill, Michin, and Piper Niven. And last but not least, we've got Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, and Elektra Lopez. So I'm going to keep this graphic up for a little while, Steve, because just so everyone can really take in the brackets and see what we're discussing as we go through it. How do you see this tournament playing out? Because we know Bayley's already in the semi-finals here at this point. Looking to next week on SmackDown, we got Bianca, Chelsea, and Blair. Could we get our wish with Chelsea meeting Bayley in the semi-final?
I can already tell you now, at the last 3 matches that are yet to happen, Bianca, Jade, and Naomi are automatically... maybe even Tiffany, they're automatically ruled out of progressing in this championship. So you're looking at Chelsea Green, Blair Davenport, Michin, Piper Niven, and Elektra Lopez, I think. Like, just to go with the first one, Davenport, Chelsea Green, Belair. Dude, if Chelsea Green doesn't win, I'm going to lose my absolute nut. Like I said, when she wins a championship, she's going to be so over. It's going to be fantastic. And then if you're going to put her against Bayley, I reckon will probably end up getting screwed out of that result as well. So we got a Chelsea in the final. Then you've got to try and find an opponent. So Chelsea's meant to be a heel. There's only really one face on the other side, and that's Michin. Or Naomi. And it's kind of like, I can see Naomi possibly doing it, but I think Michin deserves a spot in there as well. Like, I'd like to see a bit of a Chelsea Green Michin final.
Yeah, the thing is, when you see the women's tag team champions in there, as much as I would say, I could see Jade being there, like with the TBS championship in AEW and having a long run. It's already happened, but I think right now they're building Jade and Bianca for WrestleMania, and it seems to be their sort of hiccup, if you will, previously is triple threat matches. That's what they tend to lose. The fatal four ways are okay. Normal matches are fine. Triple threat all goes, it goes belly up. So I agree with you. I think Chelsea Green will take on Bayley in the semi-final. I think she finds a way through. When you get to the other half of the bracket,
Blair Davenport is in that match to take the pin, by the way. That's the reason Blair Davenport is in there.
We love you, Blair, but yeah, your shoulders are going to be pinned to the mat. There's no two ways about it. When he goes to the other side there, I agree with you. I look at Michin, I look at Naomi's potential ones there. I think, like you, Elektra Lopez, bless us, there also to take a pinfall, probably Piper Niven as well. But I kind of disagree with Tiffany Stratton, just because I know she's got the Money in the Bank briefcase, but I think she's someone that could get a little bit further in this tournament, because I wouldn't be surprised if, say, Bayley beat Chelsea Green. Right, then you need a credible heel in the final. And I think Bayley versus Tiffany would be a worthy match for Saturday night's main event. Although I would say I want it to be Chelsea Green versus Naomi or Michin. But that's what I want to see. But final play, who makes the final and who wins?
Dude, Chelsea Green. I'm still going to stick with Chelsea Green Michin, because, like I said, I think the rest of them will write themselves out. You're right in what you said. Tiffany going through makes more sense if she's going to come up against Michin in the semi-final. But yeah, I'm going to say Chelsea Green Michin, and Chelsea Green wins this. Chelsea Green deserves this, man.
I kind of agree that Chelsea Green deserves this, and I really want to see that as well. I'm just going to put it back one more time for you all to see. I will agree with you. Chelsea Green is going to make that final. I'm going to say she goes against Naomi in the final. Naomi just missed out on winning the Women's Championship. Certainly could be a contender for the first ever Women's United States Championship. I haven't seen it yet.
Chelsea Green has been the only consistent female wrestler all year, in terms of presentation, character. Do you know what I mean? She's been the only one across the board that just has done everything. Wrestling, don't get me wrong, there's obviously women in there that have had better wrestling matches all year, but in terms of presentation, Chelsea is, do you know what I mean? She's played her character perfectly. She's worked so hard. I mean, if anything, I know this is obviously on the SmackDown side, obviously, so there's no IC title, but there's just as many women on Raw that deserves to be able to spot like this. But obviously, I presume they're going to do an IC championship at one point. Fingers crossed. Dominic Mysterio versus Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania next year, and then we get that. But yeah, like I said, there is a lot more women on the Raw side that probably deserve a shot. And I think if you used to put someone like Bayley winning this, it's so easy and yet so boring at the same time.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, it's a scene they've done it, but the thing is though, she's a credible name. But I think that's why someone like Naomi would work as an alternative, because she's a credible name that's been around the block. She's a former women's champion that could carry the belt to. And usually WWE sometimes likes to give you the first champion being like a babyface, and then like you can work to Chelsea Green afterwards, for example. Like, imagine, because it's typical Chelsea. She'd be the person like, I've been screwed out of this, and I don't like the United States anyway. It should be the Canadian Championship, and I'm going to win it, and I'm going to rebrand it, and it's going to be all about me, 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 me. And it's just that that's Chelsea Green. It's how we love it. Don't change. So I wouldn't be against all of that playing out if they want to do that. But it's going to be fascinating to see the tournament. We'd like to know what you think and how you think it's going to play out now in the comments, please. But we'll move on in the meantime, and we're going to go to more comments and see what everyone's got to say. Anthony in house, hope you're doing well, Anthony. Says from the beginning, how they portrayed this storyline as the blood feud between Roman and The Rock, it doesn't make sense to have Sammy, Bronson, or Seth in here. Surely it should be purely family members that are blood related to Roman or Solo in the Survivor Series War Games match. Do you know what? It's a fantastic point that's been made there by Anthony, and it leads me to bringing up this question: have WWE made a mistake with the OG Bloodline versus New Bloodline War Games match, purely because we have 5-on-5 when I think most people were dreaming of 4-on-4? I think most people were satisfied with the idea of Roman, Jay, Jimmy, and Sammy versus, Tama Tonga Tonga Loa, Jacob Fatu, and Solo Sikoa. To bring people in outside that are not a part of this, and I agree, by the way, Anthony, Sammy is not blood related in this, but he has been a big factor in the storyline, which I think he was, he's been honorary use. He's been Sammy Uso. He's still part of the OG Bloodline. So he gets a kind of a slider cut out of this. But what about the rest of it? Did WWE need to make this 5-on-5 when I think most people would have been just satisfied with 4-on-4?
Yeah, I mean, for me, dude, the fact that they've added 2 extra people means that we got an extra 10 minutes added to this match automatically, just waiting for entrances. And I presume it's going to be a whole spectacle and a whole show, but like we're looking at a 2.5, 3 hour show. This last match on its own is going to take up probably an hour of the show. This is going to be like the main event of WrestleMania Night 2. It's going to be like an hour long. And you didn't really need to add the last 2 people in, but again, like we said at the start, this is probably in there for the best, just to like raise the value of Bronson Reed and elevate that story as well with Seth. And like I presume, I don't even know, like obviously depending on what Seth's doing towards WrestleMania, whether it's CM Punk or not, there's pros and cons to both of it, but I'm the same as everyone else. I think it was unnecessary, and I think the point will be proven if we sit there and watch Survivor Series and we see any match and we turn around and go, that match probably could have done with an extra 10 minutes, and you will know exactly where those 10 minutes should have been taken out of.
Yeah, probably. You make a very good point there. The only thing I would actually say is a contrary, by the way, as well, to family as well. You could argue that Rollins and Roman Reigns are family in a way. They are brothers because they have been through the Shield. It's an OG before the Bloodline OG. So it's kind of like, it's Roman's original group. So it's fascinating how they're probably going to intertwine and be together in this War Games match. I would say that WWE time will tell if it's a mistake or not. I will say that I didn't need 5-on-5. I would have been quite happy with 4-on-4. I think that was the match that was sold and exciting to me. I would have preferred a longer, dragged out build of getting the OG Bloodline on side of one another rather than kind of rushing through it, which is what I think they've done over the last number of weeks. At the same time, though, I would turn around and say that Survivor Series is traditionally known for 5-on-5. And if they do make bigger stars out of Bronson Reed at the other side of this, they keep Seth Rollins active in the meantime. Like you mentioned, CM Punk's name, that's probably not going to kick off till the Netflix era, so they need to keep him busy in the meantime. They'll probably do another Fortnite match with Seth and Bronson after this, and it could be bigger still going into Saturday night's main event. There are a lot of pros and possibilities that can come out of this. So is it a mistake? Potentially not, but is it something that was needed? I would then go and say no.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only other thing that I could possibly add to it is, like, I heard this idea earlier and I thought this is a pretty good shout. Obviously, with the first episode of Raw on Netflix, they're probably going to have like a world championship match, and it's more than likely going to be Gunther versus Seth Rollins. And it's kind of like you want to keep Seth hot, and it's like they obviously don't want to finish that story yet with him and Bronson. So this is just the longest way is to prolong it out, and obviously keep Seth away from Gunther for the time being, keep him away from Punk, and just like I said, draw it out a little bit longer.
And one thing I would also go out to say as well, when you go to watch previous videos that I've done, I don't think this is the last time we see Bloodline versus Bloodline in any format, particularly even War Games. I think that this has got another calendar year to roll around. If you take your Avengers, take your Marvel, we're in Infinity War at the moment. We've got a while to go until we get to like Avengers Endgame. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's one of those things where we can sit tight and relax because, you know, we've got more players to get involved with this one. And I'm sure The Rock at some point will be involved in it as well, opposing Roman Reigns. So we've got a lot of things to build towards. This is just, I suppose, a chapter in what will be the full, collection that we'll have, which is the Bloodline storyline when it's all said and done in WWE.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, let's go back to the comments in the meantime there. But thanks, Anthony, for that. That was actually really, really cool. But apparently, as well, we've seen here, Byron says apparently AEW is interested in Tegan Nox. That I'd be very happy for her because she's not really had TV time in a chance in WWE. A chance in AEW would be quite good. And their booking in AEW is getting better in the women's division.
Yeah, dude, she'll benefit wherever she goes because she was just criminally underused in WWE. So all props to wherever she goes, she's going to do fairly better.
I would hope so, indeed. Anthony says the interview that Moxley did recently where he said a lot of talent is frustrated. Do you think that is a kayfabe part of the storyline or he actually feels that way? I don't think Moxley minces his words too much. I think that the interview that came out is maybe to do with talent, but I think it was also to do with the idea that someone in production more or less said that something wasn't important because it was a curtain jerk. It was someone that was like the first lowest end of the card, and Moxley went, well, that dude's fired because like we all started at some point being the first actor on the show. You work your way up the ladder. And I think Moxley wants to build AEW to be this platform, this place, and what it can be in 5, 10, 20 years. And I think it's admirable that one of the best wrestlers in the world, and arguably also one of the biggest names, because if you walk back in WWE, you guaranteed he's a top 5 name in WWE if he walks back in there. So he's definitely a big time deal, certainly over the last decade of wrestling. And he wants to help build and make the next generation of stars. And to do that right now, he feels that the best thing for him is to turn heel. He's got this storyline, this character that's gone on. We don't know where it's going to quite lead to, but hopefully it's going to build to building the next generation of AEW, because we've gone through the Omegas, we've gone through where they've had the CM Punk, we've had the MJFs and stuff like that. And MJF is probably going to be on the mountain for another 10, 15 years anyway. But like, it's to find these other ones that are young guns and push them as the future of the promotion. So look, Moxley's trying to build to find the next stars, and some of them right now might be low down the card. You only look at someone like a Daniel Garcia this time 12 months ago, couldn't buy a win. At this point now, he's challenging for the TNT Championship, feels a lot more serious, dropped the fandangoing, and he's someone that could genuinely be a champion and someone that could be a force to be reckoned with in AEW. So for me, I'm actually quite excited of the direction of the promotion right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think this promo it's got like an essence of CM Punk to it, where he's kind of trying to blur the lines between reality and kayfabe with this one. And yeah, I mean, I think they have to do something because they're losing really good talent as well. Like obviously Jade Cargill went to WWE, Ricky Starks is potentially on the way out, and like you're not necessarily worried about some of the guys that they brought in from WWE because it was like they're already established stars that you're bringing in. But if you're getting these people come in, I'll even say Ethan Page on that note, because obviously Ethan Page, he was known, but he wasn't like concurrently. Well, like, you know what I mean? He had a short stint in TNA for a while, didn't he, as a tag team wrestler? But then to become a mainstay on AEW, and then to lose these people that are then going to WWE and becoming even bigger, and it's kind of like they need to learn to stop doing this kind of stuff and shooting themselves in the foot, and they need to pull the trigger on the stars that they've got and not essentially faff about waiting to do it, because ultimately it just leads to this.
Absolutely. Now the company's like 5 years old now as well, and some of those talents that would have signed their initial contracts, the one that was stuck around now rather than jump ship, you'd like to think those are the ones that are probably going to have shown the loyalty to AEW, the ones that are they're happy there, that have stuck around, they're ready to try and get to the next level. and now it's time to put faith in some of those talents and hope that then they won't do the same thing perhaps some others have done by going to the other side. But ultimately, I like you say, I think it's a blur between the two. But I think I don't think John minces a lot of his words. I think that he speaks quite freely and shoots from the hip.
Yeah, I mean, like we all know AEW are like signing guys up to like 5-6 year deals, and it's like that's great. But if you've got a guy for 5-6 years, he does nothing, and then he goes to the other company and he starts doing amazing, whose fault is that on? Do you know what I mean? So they need to just make sure that they're not shooting themselves in the foot and basically paying people for 5 years and not doing anything with them.
Certainly indeed. Let's move on then and get some predictions then for the Women's United States Championship tournament. At this point, Byron's reckons Chelsea Green is going to win. Anthony has given us some thoughts throughout all of the brackets, so bear with me for a second. I'll just get this back up for us so we can get the comments as we go through. On the left side, it will be Blair versus Bailey. On the right side, going to be Jade versus Tiffany. I like that. Those are some interesting, fun matches. And then going for a Blair versus Tiffany final, which sees Blair winning. Anthony going for a Blair Davenport to pick up the title. We've got her taking the pinfall in the first round, but power there.
Yeah, I mean, Blair Jade is a possibility if they're trying to push this whole split angle. So having them fight each other in the final of a tournament for a new title isn't necessarily a bad way to go. But then you've got a previous world champion who is a tag team champion who now has the mid-card title, and it's like, where is the opportunity for everyone else?
Absolutely. I want to see new names get established with this championship. I think that's the best way to go around with the Women's United States Championship. That's certainly what I think is what you should be doing with it. So although the established star can help perhaps maybe build prestige with it, I think it should be for those people that are not able to fight for a women's championship right now. It would help with that. This is a fun question from Ray. I'm going to jump this one straight in. He says, if you could go back and watch any match from 2024, what match would you watch? For him, it would be Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, I should say, versus Will Ospreay.
We're kind of blessed with being able to do that anyway. And it's kind of like, I think the question the question really should be, if you were going to go back and watch a match again for the first time, what match would it be? I mean, dude, for me, I'd still say Roman versus Cody, main event night 2 WrestleMania, because again, it's a 2-year story payoff. And I'd have to say that.
I mean, for me, it's my answer as well. But I mean, whether that was with your twist or not, just purely because for me, it's still my favorite match of the year. I know that some people find that controversial, but like you said, it built with the story, and I
54 minutes long that was, that 54 minutes from entrance to bell. Do you know what I mean?
And for a 5-minute period, that match completely lost its shit, and so did I. I was a child again. I was loving life. I was loving life watching all those cameos come in, and I couldn't give a Scooby whether it made sense or didn't. And usually I'm someone who critique the hell out of that stuff, and I absolutely loved it. And the fact that I felt like I could be like a 10-year-old again, for me, takes it. But of course, Danielson versus Ospreay here is a fact. To be fair, any Will Ospreay match is not a patch out. Will Ospreay's at about
5-star matches for fun.
Yeah, he's had about 20 match of the year candidates on his own, usually just by appearing on Dynamite, let alone the PLEs as well. So, he's doing some good stuff. Let's go back into more comments up here. Anthony again says, reading somewhere recently that Triple H, him and Shawn Michaels are thinking about making it purely a third show, creating a developmental show called Proving Ground, and that would be on the YouTube, Netflix, and CW app. Interesting if that would be something that they would look to do. Obviously, now they do have the WWE ID thing. Is it WWE ID they started with now? Yeah. So obviously that's their latest pet project at the particular moment. I think NXT already is kind of its third brand, but I do think it keeps its developmental name tag right now. I can't see it going anytime soon.
I like the way NXT is at the minute, whether it's you class it as a third or a developmental. The fact that we get these kind of like that. I think I heard today as well that they want to make the ECW show a yearly thing now. Like they want to make that like its own special thing, which I think is great. But like the way they get the crossover with other brands like TNA, I think is just fantastic. And like Just the way it's being produced. I mean, at the minute, I think NXT is the best show on TV out of the three of them. It's the most entertaining. It's the most unpredictable out of the three. I think Raw is suffering badly from going to 2 hours at the minute, especially with, like I said, the size of the roster is the biggest problem. SmackDown's doing okay, but I just think NXT in general is the most exciting brand to watch at the minute.
Yeah, I think NXT is the most exciting brand to watch in a minute, but I do disagree. I do love Monday Night Raw at 2 hours. I don't know. I know that some of the talent make TV. I get that, but look, when you have the next draft, there are some people on SmackDown that could be a bit fortunate for getting the TV time compared to some of the people on Raw. You just you feel the rosters out. You know what I mean?
You're gonna be sad when both shows go to 3 hours next year.
I am, because it's tough enough to watch it currently at 2. So I'm going to absolutely hate it, because I like to keep up to date and give you as much content and that's topical as possible. So yeah, I'm going to hate it. But that's what it is. Kai says, would you like to see a Del Boy character wrestle in any wrestling company? So for Del Boy, for those that aren't aware, obviously Only Fools and Horses, a classic UK comedy show. Del Boy was always looking for that fix to make him a millionaire, wasn't he? Always looking for his antiques and stuff, trying to ship them off, didn't he? And eventually got his way at the end. But obviously Del Boy was a great character for his TV series back in the day. Is it something that would work in a wrestling promotion for you?
I mean, yeah, as a comedy character, sure. I mean, we've had loads of British iterations of wrestler. Like Ridge Holland initially, when he came in, was a very Peaky Blinders almost kind of character. I think if you'd just had Ridge Holland do spoof comedy, it would have been pretty much closer to Del Boy than anything else. But yeah, man, dude, if someone can do it and they can do it well, by all means, dude. Look, honestly, look at what Orange Cassidy used to do. The guy's gimmick is lazy wrestler, and he now is in a position to fight for a world title on the arguably second largest wrestling company in the world.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be against seeing. I think it could be a lot of fun, to be fair. Yeah. So it do still some clips on from time to time from Only Fools and Horses, and it always still gives me a giggle to this day. Anthony says, I'm a big Derby fan, tired of his babyface character. He needs to turn heel already and join the Death Riders. I get where you're coming from. I can't agree with that. There is I'm getting a bit bored of Derby as well, but I think it's purely because I feel
he's been with Sting for four or 5 years.
Yeah, and I think it's time to push him up. I think here's my problem with Darby Allin. If I was to have one, I feel that I don't always enjoy his promos as much as I like watching him jump off a ladder or whatever, and the Mount Everest thing really makes me find it hard to connect with what he's doing, because I sit there and think, well, you're going to go and do that, and you would have done it this year if you could have done. He's going to try and do it next year. So even if he wins the world title between now and going, it's kind of like, well, you're going to lose it, or you're going to have to vacate it because you're going to go and count Mount Everest. So I think I struggle to buy into what he's going to do long term, I think is what I'm trying to say. But if we're saying about just the simply the babyface character, well, the babyface character just jumps off of things. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him mix it up, but I wouldn't necessarily say I want him to join Moxley's group.
We went through the Jeff Hardy era, so it's kind of the same shtick.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think my biggest issue for Darby is that he doesn't. I find it hard for him to elevate his levels, because every time he does something stupidly outlandish. And yes, sometimes he goes a little bit more crazy than he does before, but it's like, it just feels like he's constantly on a path of trying to do something even more stupid than he did in the last match. And when it just doesn't work, you kind of like, well, it's just Darby Allin. He's just going to do a coffin drop off something, like whether it's 10 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet. All he's doing is just going to keep getting higher and higher. And it's like, we've seen this so many times before. And it's like, I'm just getting more on the edge of, is he going to seriously hurt himself at some point because he's just going to push it too much to the limits? And then, like you said, his promos aren't the greatest. And like I said, dude, sticking him with Sting for 5 years, as much as he's meant to be a mentor, they've essentially he's been a tag team wrestler for the longest time. There's been no development in his character.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think they were looking to build him as a world champion early this year. They gave him the Royal Rampage, and then he kind of just gave I know we lost the match to Moxley, but it felt like he just willy-nilly put the shot on the line. It's a very stupid babyface move. It makes him seem silly, not a daredevil. And yeah, there was some things to tweak and to fix, but I do think they're going to try and get on the right path with Darby between now and World's End.
I think if you just for like, I don't know, a couple of months or whatever, like just spin his character slightly and lose the dumb stuff like coughing drops off of a 30-foot ladder, and just make him more convincing and more aggressive and just able to like win a match, win it well with loads of aggression in like a short amount of time, and just give him a different version instead of, Darby can only win matches by doing crazy stuff. Do you know what I mean? Just make him win a normal wrestling match, essentially.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I mean, Darby was like one of my favorite wrestlers in AEW when it first started, but more and more it goes on, the further down the pecking order he drops, and I think he does need to freshen up a little bit in some way. What that is at the moment for myself, I can't fully quite put my finger on it, but like I say, other factors may both be playing into that reasoning. Kai says, do you think Tony Rope is a good name for a wrestler? Let's get ready to rumble for a theme. I think Kai has definitely got his WWE 2K24 character fixed, certainly if not ready for 2K25.
I mean, dude, most of the times it's two first names as a wrestler name anyway, so Tony Rope ain't that bad. It's just how you present him really more than anything. Absolutely.
Kai will give up WWE if Jade Cargill wins the US title. Not a fan. As we've known now, Kai is not a fan of Jade Cargill. We've learned that in the last few streams. And he says, do you think Triple H is going to try and restart Insane Championship Wrestling Progress, and possibly partner up with Eve and Bellatrix?
I mean, why not, dude? I mean, from what I heard, like they want a wrestling show every night of the week, and then we'll never get any. Like, we'll never be able to do anything, unfortunately. But as a business prospect, I mean, dude, Triple H is going to run himself into the ground just by booking himself into a position where he can't work anymore because he's just so overworked. Yeah, I mean, dude, we can see how positively the TNA partnership has worked for NXT, and bearing in mind whatever happens with TNA, whether I still think that WWE are going to end up buying them at some point because they're going to want that tape library as well. I mean, even if they was to make TNA one of their shows or whatever, there's always a plus side for WWE to partner with other wrestling companies, because you're just going to see all these crossovers with all these great stars. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if GCW gets a chat at some point and we get certain people from there coming over.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise. WWE are finding ways to think outside the box all the time now. So never say never with anything when it comes to Triple H at this particular time. They seem to have a bit of a relationship now with Pro Wrestling Noah as well, which of course we're starting to see now coming to fruition with Josh Briggs on NXT this past week. So yeah, I mean, anything can happen when it comes to WWE right now, I'd say. Definitely keep an eye out for it. Sis says, have you seen the new Raw logo for Netflix? No, I haven't seen it.
I haven't, but I'll have a quick look for it while we're carrying on talking.
Absolutely. Well, then Ray has another question for us. Says, when do you think Edge will return to AEW? When the leg's better, I think is probably going to be the case. That was a nasty fall off the cage. Obviously, Double or Nothing earlier this year. I don't know how long it takes to necessarily heal from that sort of injury, but my guess would be sometime next year. Would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, dude, but like, I'm taking Edge for what I can get, so I'm not in no rush for him to come back as long as he's prepared to. I found the logo, by the way, as well. If you can see it, it's all curvy.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't mind it.
Yeah,
I like the new SmackDown one, even though people don't like that. So
yeah, I like that.
Change it once in a while. Yeah. Waiting for you to change your logo, Steve.
That will come at some point. Keep an eye out. There will be some changes coming. That's your first tease. Sid says, Scott D'Amore reportedly visited the Performance Center last week and had talks with WWE. Will he join WWE? Asked Sid. I hope so. I'm going to just stick it in my neck out and say, I hope so. I don't know where he would fit in now as much because of the fact that I think when you look at the general manager positions, I think Adam Pearce is tremendous as a GM, personally. It took me a while to warm to him, but Adam Pearce has been discreetly an amazing general manager for about 4 to 5 years now, and has been under the radar. He's teamed up with people like Sonya Deville and all these other people. Sorry?
He has a drink problem now, though.
He does have a drink problem now. That could be the way to write him off eventually if they wanted to. But I tell you what, he's done an incredible job as GM. Nick Aldis, for me, has changed the game as GMs. He's made it relevant again since coming back in the last 12 months. He will eventually go back to the ring, though. I can see him doing that. And I think that a match with Cody Rhodes in some point in 2025 wouldn't surprise me. So that could be the place where Scott D'Amore could fit in. Because I don't think Ava will be dropping from the NXT position either, because I think I think she's doing good work. I know that she's not the strongest in the mic, but she is growing into the role. She's certainly improving. Scott D'Amore would be a great signing for WWE, not just even for on screen though, off screen. The guy has got an eye for talent, and he always seemed to find a way to find the next, talents that could come into TNA, Impact Wrestling at the time, make stars out of them, and then they would move on to be, going to AEW or to WWE. So, and we've seen so many of them over the years do that. So Scott D'Amore, for me, I think would be an asset to wherever he would land. But he's been doing Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, hasn't he? So, I mean, could that be something that they could link together with as well? I know there's been AEW talents though on those shows as well.
You literally said the correct answer a little while ago. WWE ID. Scott D'Amore on WWE ID and have him work with that talent that want to get into WWE. There you go, man. There's your doorway in with you using Scott D'Amore in that position.
Absolutely. When you got people like Jeremy Borash, Abyss already back there as well. It seems to all link itself together. Like to see it happen. Who do you think should be called up from NXT to the main roster? One, Roxanne Perez would be the next one for me.
Trick Williams as well, I think as well. He's he's destined to be called up, even at Rumble maybe, but definitely after Mania.
Ethan Page probably as well, just truly because of the fact that he's not there to be developed. He's ready.
Yeah, he's one dude. He was ready the day he walked in the building.
Yeah, there you go. Byron, I can't tell you what I'll be doing on December 12th at the minute, but I do hope that you will enjoy the 2024 Game Awards. But we've wrapped up the questions portion of this video, ladies and gentlemen.
Before we go, I actually have a good question for you. So I watched a video earlier from the guys at What Culture, and they'd put out a video, and it was like, if you could delete one thing from wrestling history, what would it be? Now, a lot of these answers I thought were pretty basic. You had like, the Montreal Screwjob. One guy even turned around and said, Triple H is a wrestler. And I was like, that's a pretty bold comment. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to ask you this question while I'm here. If you could delete one thing from pro wrestling history, so it never happens, but bearing in mind, you've obviously got to look at the butterfly effect of deleting that moment, what would it be?
So are we simply doing this with story purposes, or are we doing this where real life gets involved as well?
Whatever you want. I mean, like, obviously the things like, the horrible things that have happened outside of wrestling, sure. But I mean, do whatever you want. Go for it. I have my answer.
I mean, obviously, Over the Edge 1999 would never have happened. That would be my thing. Owen would still be with us.
Yeah, it's a good answer.
Would be the one. But if I was to go with a storyline, but lighter to the question, because I think then what would I do that would have not happened? I really think it's a very modern answer, but it still grinds me to this day. Goldberg would not beat Kevin Owens in 21 seconds. KO would continue to be champion going into WrestleMania 33 to take on Chris Jericho. Goldberg and Brock could just tear up shit and just do their thing like they were going to do anyway without a world title needing to be involved.
I mean, that is a really good answer. I mean, equally, I could just say to that the invasion angle happens, but with the actual really good wrestlers. Because imagine invasion with Sting and Hogan and all that kind of stuff. My actual answer is CM Punk never gets fired from WWE. I would like to have seen what the 9 years him missing from WWE would have been like. Would he have finally got a main event at WrestleMania? Like all the wrestlers, he would have gone. Like, imagine if he'd been around for 9 years, he'd probably be in that Shawn Michaels position now, and like him wrestling Adam Cole on NXT. Do you know what I mean? How crazy does that sound?
Absolutely, yeah. That would be fascinating. I like that answer. That's a really strong answer. Byron says Stone Cold would have won the 1999 Royal Rumble. There you go. Wouldn't have been Mr. McMahon winning it after all. Kai just went with AEW. Deleting Jay Cargill's AEW TNT title run. We saw it coming. We knew it was coming. We knew it was there. But no, I think it was a very creative question that's been put there. It's good to see a good couple of answers come through as well. Shout out as well to Richard Rose. He did get involved with us before the show, and I did say I would throw the comment in for him. He wants to see Zoe Stark as a future Women's World Champion. Would like to see it as soon as Survivor Series or the Royal Rumble. Big fan of Zoe Stark. Obviously, we're not going to predict how and when, but we are going to ask the question quickly. Is Zoe Stark a future Women's Champion or Women's World Champion in WWE, in your opinion?
I mean, in the minute she needs to get some wins and possibly lead that faction. But yeah, by all means, man. I mean, like, she was fighting for the world title at the start of this year, and she has the in-ring capability. I think she just generally needs better booking. And I'm not being funny. If anything, if they're planning on doing an Intercontinental title next year, that's one way to start elevating her. But yeah, man, I could see Zoe Stark being a future champion. She has got all the talent in the world, and she just needs that booking. She needs that push, and it's just, unfortunately, she ain't going to get it at the minute, being part of the worst faction name, taking L's and just not doing anything.
I mean, now they are literally the the PFC. They've got rid of the full name. They're just literally now down to initials at this point. So,
dude, that was so bad. Do you remember when they did that with Team BAD, and what was the other one when they did the women's evolution and they did the call ups, and it was PC, it was PC something.
Yeah.
PCB and Team Bad, and I was like, oh my god, it's such lazy creative, man.
Absolutely. But to go back on Richard's question, I think there's a future Women's World Champion in there at some point. I don't think it's tomorrow. I think it could be a year or two away. I like the suggestion of the mid-card championship, particularly first, because I think that's how you get the experience of holding a title. That's when you have the, I suppose, people getting behind you, recognizing you as a champion, which is funny because I'm going to link this to the SmackDown Tag Team Division in a minute, because I think the Motor City Machine Guns have really starting to now connect with the WWE audience a bit more week by week. The more people see them, and they see them as the tag team champions. Therefore, I think people now starting to get more and more into their matches. So we're a bit silent at first. It's getting better. But I think with Zoe Stark, they've been never silent with her matches, but I just think the fact she's been put in this group and they're losing every week doesn't really help. And like you said, I think she needs out of this group desperately. I think that the best thing, because this group should have been great. It should have been. They should have been tag team champions. I still would like to see them do something decent, but if it doesn't turn around in the next 3 months or so after Royal Rumble, I'd break this group up. I'd go in the triple threat match direction, and Stark would be the one, or DeVille, that I'd just say, strap the rocket to them, try and then get them. Because for me, the Women's Intercontinental Championship, we've seen the United States Championship. It seems to be SmackDown exclusive at the moment, judging by the brackets. We imagine there'll be a Women's Intercontinental Championship. How does that come in? For me, Elimination Chamber. Just do it in the chamber match.
Oh, that's a good shout. That's a really good shout. I mean, I wouldn't be against the idea of a. Nah, do you know what? Actually, no, chamber probably makes the most sense. Like, if you're going to do it, if you want to put all eyes on a pay-per-view that kind of really, if for a pay-per-view that has its draw of that match, why not put something more spectacular online and bring in a new mid-card title in the IC Championship? But yeah, man, like I said, that, or put Money in the Bank on her, turn her heel, have her turn on the other two, put Money in the Bank on her. Like, you see how much Tiffany Stratton's value has gone up this year with that briefcase. If you make her just a really vicious heel, a really, like, I'm trying to think of an opportunity, like an Edge kind of character, like a really opportunistic style wrestler who has that Money in the Bank briefcase, that's another way to elevate her.
Certainly is indeed, yeah. Future Women's Champion in some format, yes. Would it be as soon as Richard wants? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
We're going to move on to the SmackDown Tag Team Division, because it's heating up, ladies and gentlemen. The Motor City Machine Guns are the tag team champions as of right now. We see some great matches with likes of DIY, the Street Profits this past week on SmackDown as well. However, the match didn't get its natural conclusion, purely down to the fact that Tommaso Ciampa got involved in the match. And of course, it feels like we are starting to see more of the black heart of Ciampa once again, the old NXT black and gold version of Ciampa. And even Johnny Gargano cannot calm this guy down. I'm really excited what we're seeing with the tag team division, because even when the Motor City Machine Guns were kind of like, this wasn't our plan, the Street Profits are frustrated as well. They smack Shelly straight in the face. Like, for me, I'm sitting there thinking, it's great. All of a sudden, we're starting to see teams wanting to do stuff. NXT's kind of trying to heat up the tag team division also. But when you've got other tag teams in the likes of, we have the Bloodline that are there. We've got Legado del Fantasma, Pretty Deadly. It's a strong tag team division that SmackDown has got right now. When you look at the quality of matches and also some of the top teams that are riding at the top of that division, and obviously you've even got A-Town Down Under that are part of that as the inaugural of this new championship design. So your thoughts of the SmackDown tag team division right now, because I'm starting to enjoy the direction that it's heading.
Dude, stacked talent. My only worry is that they want to separate DIY at the minute, and it's kind of like I would rather them just get Johnny on Ciampa's level and just be that aggressive. Like, don't get me wrong, I think we really are overdue the actual proper finale of the Tommaso Ciampa Johnny Gargano feud, whether it be at WrestleMania next year or the year after. I think the year after would be better. But if we can get a serious heel DIY, Street Profits turning heel finally, like we've been crying out for, like a proper heel, like don't take nothing from no one attitude. And like you said, the other team's Pretty Deadly. Dude, I love Pretty Deadly. They've kind of been underused during this whole transition between Vince taking over to Triple H taking over, but there's so many good teams on there, dude. Like you said with the NXT, they're trying to do the same thing. But yeah, the SmackDown division is so stacked with so many good tag teams, and it's like it almost feels like we need a second tag team championship on the show. Don't do it by all means, but like there's so many good tag teams, and you just want to see them all wrestle because they all have something different or unique to bring to a match. And it's kind of like you don't really want to be doing 6-way matches every week, do you know what I mean? But it's kind of like you're trying to find that balance where you can get everyone, and it's giving me vibes of how like we used to have the Hardys, the Dudleys, Edge and Christian. Do you know what I mean? That era of tag team wrestling where we have a solid core foundation of some really good tag teams, and man, it's like we're getting there. We're getting back to the old days when we used to have really good tag team divisions, man.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you mentioned about those three tag teams, used to then be at a company there with the likes of the Acolytes, APA. You have the Hollies, they have other tag teams that go around. No, I mentioned Head Cheese, but I mean, like there was so many great tag teams that were in and around that period. But at the same time, this tag team division now has got so many different flavors like that. And like you say, you got your top tag teams there, and there is starting to be a bit of tension.
There is something for everyone.
There is something for everyone in amongst that. It's going to be interesting now with what they do with Ciampa and Gargano at this point, because like you say, are they going to break them up? Are they going to keep them together? I'm with you. I want Gargano to go to be a heel because I kind of feel Gargano's been, I don't want to say lackluster since his return, but I just kind of feel like we've not seen. And I want to see the way Johnny Gargano a little bit, like where we was.
That's what I'm saying. He wasn't even that heel though. He was kind of like a comedic heel, and it's like, no, I want to see a vicious Johnny Gargano. I want to see a Johnny Gargano that locks in submission moves and just doesn't break the count or like gets the win but just keeps going. Do you know what I mean?
See, I'm happy to still see him be, though, the Johnny Gargano that was like that, because he can have the big mouth and have the big talk because he's got the black heart Ciampa that will actually do the dirty work and watches. He can be the one that can do the big talk, but actually he's got some of the hide behind a little bit. You know what I mean? That kind of vibe going with it. So it's going to be interesting what they do with this tag team division and where it's going to lead to, because we've already had like a TLC match recently with 3 teams. So it's like we can't give it away so soon. But Survivor Series Saturday night's main event, how far away have we got to wait until the SmackDown Tag Team Division or the Tag Team Championships are going to be on a premium live event again?
I mean, dude, the way they're going, they should be on every premium live event. I mean, I think the real question is, how long is it before that division ends up main event in a premium live event?
That'd be good to see. That'd be fun to see. They're starting to get there with the tag team division on SmackDown. So, let's hope that Triple H can keep elevating, because it has been something that's been neglected for a while, and it's now starting to heat up, and it's good to see. We are almost ready to wrap up here, but before we do, I'd just like to ask you if you can please hit that like button. It does more than you can realize to help a video here on YouTube. So if you're here and you've joined in, we're an hour and 8 minutes at this point, chances are you've enjoyed it. So please hit the like button. It really does help the channel a long way. More videos will be dropping this week as well. But before we go, let's go with the remainder of your comments. One thing Sid would like to raise from wrestling history: DDP versus The Undertaker. Stoking storyline. I think that's another stalking storyline. I think is where he's going with that one there. I think we can all agree with that one.
There is no wrong answer. There is for every 4 good ideas, there are about 40 bad ideas, and it's kind of like you just basically take your pick of what one you want to do.
Absolutely. Fiend would have lost to Demon King, says Byron, obviously, with the Balor and Fiend feud back in the day. Also,
I've got another one for you.
go on.
Seth wouldn't have won via stoppage in Hell in a Cell versus Bray Wyatt.
I mean, we could definitely change that one. Jesus, that harmed a lot
so
of people.
many.
So bad, so bad. What is the funniest character in wrestling? For me, it's Curryman in TNA, says Sid. There's some good ones out there.
For me, I still have to say Orange Cassidy. There is a match on YouTube. I found it one day, and honestly, I've watched it 100 times since. It's so funny. It's Orange Cassidy versus Hornswoggle, and this is original Orange Cassidy, like lazy, like drinks orange juice and goes to spray it in his face, but because Hornswoggle was obviously like 3 foot tall, he just misses. It's honestly the funniest wrestling match I've seen in so long, and it was just so much fun to watch. So I'm saying Orange Cassidy, man, he exactly what he is on the tin.
I think Cassidy does some good stuff in there. I'll go with Danhausen. I think for me, is one that's he's a fun one.
Mizdown
was good back in the things. I do get a kick out of Santino Marella. He still does make
so good.
He's it's bad.
But yeah, Dave Bautista.
Isaiah says The Rock is going to attack Roman after the War Games match. Would love to see that happen. I'm not against the Roman versus Rock match being built for this year's WrestleMania. Yeah, would love to see it.
It's a possibility.
It's a possibility indeed. Sis said, do you like Billy and Chuck characters in WWE? They certainly were controversial for their time.
They're very controversial. It's kind of like almost like they were used at the wrong time. I think if they'd have been used today, they probably would have worked a bit better. But I was not a fan of the whole storyline. I didn't understand what the point of it was. Like there was nothing to gain from doing it. It was all. Do you know what it almost felt like? It was a punishment for something.
I kind of will agree. I didn't connect with this as well as they wanted to, but 2 good wrestlers in their own way, and they did have couple of runs as tag team champions as well. Ray asked, was the Outrunners win the AEW tag team titles at Full Gear? They are in the 4-way tag team title match.
Yeah, man, dude, why not? Like they've got a lot of just a lot of momentum at the minute, so why not? Like this, which the conversation was having a little while ago. You want to pull the trigger on these people instead of just having them on your roster for 4 years and let them go somewhere else. Pull the trigger, man. Give them titles.
So I would not be against it because they seem to be over like Rover at the minute, but currently got a private party to retain. They've only just won them, so I think it would be a bit early. Byron also, last couple of comments now, and we are wrapping it up. Says we already got 3 matches for Survivor Series. We need 3 more. I think we'll be lucky if we get just 1 more, to be honest. And I think this could be the one. Cody versus KO being made official for Survivor Series next week is Byron's prediction. I'm going to agree with your prediction, Byron.
What are the other matches? Obviously, War Games, and what's the other 2 at the minute that have been confirmed?
I think Women's War Games match, which I don't think is confirmed at the time of recording, but I don't know if that is arisen. But Women's War Games as well. And then we probably will have Damien and Gunther, which has been confirmed for the show.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense. Let me just check the old Wikipedia. I know it's not exactly the most accurate thing, but according to Wikipedia, there is only 2, which is the Men's War Games and Gunther versus Priest at the minute. But yes, I imagine Cody versus Kevin will be another one.
I imagine as well, because spoiler free, we have been spoiler free. Raw has already been pre-taped. They may have probably announced the Women's War Games match, which of course will not be out publicly everywhere at the moment.
Won't lie, I kind of hope. I really want Kevin Owens to beat Cody Rhodes.
I would love to see it as well. Just refreshing things, even if it's just the Rumble, it just freshen that scene up a little bit and just create a bit of controversy. Would be awesome to see. Yes, Sid, Arena Grace is Santino Marella's real daughter. Certainly did miss her on NXT at the moment, but she's been doing some stuff in TNA, I know. Final Testament versus White 6 certainly is a fun feud. I'm enjoying the way that's playing out at the moment. Cross is doing some great work.
Is it really Survivor Series bound, though? I can't really see him getting that on the card at the minute, so I think that's more of a Raw/SmackDown main event at the minute. Raw main event.
Yeah, Raw main event or Saturday night's main event. I think we're looking for that one at the particular moment, because that'll be a 2-hour show.
That.
Yeah, it's still early days for that one. I'd like it to go to WrestleMania, but that does seem quite far away. But what's not far away, though, ladies and gentlemen, is the next video we'll be dropping on the channel, because I can promise you it's been a busy week this week, but there's some videos in the pipeline coming out for you coming up this week, including SCW Rewind will be returning with Survivor Series 2019, the show that you voted for. NXT has made the start of watching it. I will be watching it as well. Then we'll be reviewing it for you lovely people. As well as that, we've got other videos on the way on the road to Survivor Series War Games this year, of course, 2024. And it'll be AEW Full Gear predictions, and of course, worst match ever making its return this week, and also Mount Rushmore. It's taken a couple of weeks break, but it's making its comeback this upcoming week. And Steve, any thoughts you'd like to add before we close off the show?
I was just going to say, obviously, the Survivor Series is one where we have to watch the kickoff because the matches count towards the final score at the end of the show. Absolutely. So not only are we watching a 3.5-hour pay-per-view, you have to go for a 2-hour kickoff show as well.
Thumbs up. Thumbs up from me. But thanks everyone for your comments and your questions. You've kept us very busy for the last hour and 14 minutes, and we do highly appreciate it indeed. If you've enjoyed it, hit the like button. And if you're watching on delay, thank you for taking the time to watch us. Enjoy the rest of your day. And in the meantime, if you want to know more about our thoughts about this Bloodline saga that's been going on this year, then why not check out the video that's giving my opinions of how I think this story is going to end. Or alternatively, who I think the 5th members are going to be. We know one side, we know it's Bronson Reed. Who's going to be on the other side? Those videos, if you're watching on delay, will be available on the side of your screen right now. And if you're watching live right now, it's available in the channel feed. Take care, look after yourselves. We'll see you for the next video.